Nicolello. I'll be your in-person facilitator for today. And then I'm also joined by my colleague, Emily Thomas Peralta, who will introduce themselves shortly. My pronouns are she, hers. It's a pleasure to be with you all today.
Good morning, everybody. So great to see all of you. Thank you for joining. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta. I have she, her pronouns and looking forward to assisting here in the virtual space.
Thank you so much. Can we please get the slides up? Thank you. So we have closed captions in English and Spanish available. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. To access closed captions, at the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, then click on the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. In the effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. For public input, there will be opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today around 9:50 a.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CBAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, please dial 1-646-931-3860 or 1-408-638-0968. Then enter the meeting ID 823-5803-3783 with the passcode 385815. You'll then dial *9 to raise your hand, and after you're invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. For our group agreements today, we want to focus on putting relationships first, keep focused on our common goal, notice the power dynamics in the room, create a space for multiple truths and norms, be kind and brave, practice examining racially biased systems and processes. This is a learning space for everyone, so let's look for learning. Advisory group members will turn cameras on as we share this space together. Please take care of your personal needs as they come up. Let the facilitator know if you need to step away. Virtual participants can participate by taking written notes, as well as using the raise hand and speak features for active engagement. We welcome diverse perspectives. It's okay to disagree. We want to move up, and we want to assume and have good intentions. I'm now going to pass it on to Greg Johnson, Program Administrator, to welcome us to the space, followed by Commissioner Maps and then Mayor Ann.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry I could not be in the room with you. I have a number of back-to-back meetings today, which I have to be in the office for. But once again, thank you for your participation and attention to this critical part of the IBR program. So welcome.
Okay, and now I think it's me. Hi, folks. My name's Mengus. I'm one of your commissioners here in Portland. I want to thank you all for traveling to Portland today. I also want to compliment my staff for arranging the beautiful weather. I am very eager to dive into the important topics we have on today's agenda, and I am very blessed to be sitting next to my friend Mary Ann.
Thank you, sweetie. Ann McInerney, Ogle Mayor for the City of Vancouver. We love the weather. Thank you for providing.
It's always sunny here in Portland.
The parking, absolutely. We're ready to rock and roll. Let's get going.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, so to go through our meeting agenda today, we do have a pretty packed agenda. So of course, we have our call to order, our welcome and introductions, and then our meeting overview and outcomes for today. We'll have public comment at 9:50. At 10 a.m., we'll have a program update. At 10:05, we'll discuss and confirm the CBAG recommendations for the avoid further harm category. And then at 10:25 a.m., we'll have a presentation on tribal government consultation and section 106 with time for a brief Q&A, followed by a small group discussion from 10:40 to 11:10, and then followed by a large group report out. And then at 11:25 a.m., we'll have closing and next steps. I will then turn it over to our City of Portland staff. Are there any building security things or information about restrooms to share?
The restrooms are by the elevator bank that you walked by when you came in. And I think you're all familiar with the entry. There's stairs and an elevator down.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move into our introductions for today. So we are going to go through and introduce ourselves, starting with our name, organizational affiliation or at-large status, and pronouns. Our check-in question today, which is very appropriate for this weather, is what activities are you looking forward to doing in the spring? I am then going to start with Commissioner Maps and then move around our left here in the in-person room before we then move to the virtual room, which will be facilitated by Emily.
Hi, folks. Mengus, Portland City Council. I also am the commissioner in charge of PBOT, which is ostensibly why I'm here today. As we head into the spring, as I was just saying earlier, I'm very much enjoying our longer days. My days start pretty early because I have kids who have to get to school, so it's wonderful to actually wake up and have sunlight out, as opposed to just a couple months ago when you start your day in the dark and end the day in the dark. It's great to get a little bit of sunshine too.
And McInerney Ogle, Mayor for the City of Vancouver. Us gardening. The soil is still too soggy to till, but we'll mound it up and get some onion sets in there and get the last of the dormant sprays on. So looking forward to a change of seasons.
Eric Holmes, City Manager of City of Vancouver, and actually have a pleasure trip to Washington, DC planned with my family. And it is going to occur during the cherry blossom.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Tom Hickey. I am a representative on the Citizens Advisory Group for the bridge, so I kind of liaison between these two committees, as well as hopefully speak the voice of the North Portland neighborhoods. This spring, for the first time, I have a membership at the zoo and a 3-year-old granddaughter. So
boy, that's
we'll be spending a lot of time
best.
there, I think.
Hi, Walter Valenta. I'm from North Portland as well. I represent sort of the river edge, I guess. I'm actually looking forward to getting out and gardening and just catching up with the outside stuff, which I find I like. The older I get, I enjoy it more. But I like it when it's sunny and dry. So I just love how it feels like we've made that transition. So.
Good to be with everybody. I'm Nate McCoy, President and CEO of NAMAC Oregon. He, him pronouns. I live for sports, so I have a 11-year-old and a 7-year-old who go to Kairos PDX, and I play elite basketball and elite soccer. When I say elite basketball and soccer, we travel across the states. Looking forward for some traveling, but probably I would hope that I can rest a little bit too. I play all day, and parents just sit and watch. So looking forward to some of that activity.
I'm Corky Collier, Columbia Corridor Association, and just want you to understand, for your kids to be elite, the other kids, like my son, have to not.
It's a title. I don't know if I like saying it to my kids.
I want to let you know we're having a help you out there. This time of year, it's the snow on the ski slopes melts, and I'm an old river runner, so the river starts flowing. It's time to get out there, canoe, raft, whatever.
Carly Francis, Washington State DOT. And I'm just excited about big, deep breaths of the air that smells like it's changing. Yeah. So it's my excitement.
Holly Williams, City of Vancouver resident, specifically Arneta, she, her. Well, as a Washington State Parks Commissioner, I gotta say, I'm super excited to be getting out in parks more. And likewise, using my Class 1 e-bike on our trails. And so, yeah, really looking forward to the good weather and also the start of the thorn season.
Well, I wish you luck, Eric. You got to get there before the first wind, though, because as soon as that windy storm comes through, they're gone again. So, but it's gorgeous to see in person. I'm looking forward to. I'm Ryan Winsheimer. I'm the ODOT Region 1 manager. I'm looking forward to watching my son play high school tennis. That's a lot of fun outside. Get to enjoy the sun and that.
Good morning, everyone. Patrick Sweeney, PBOT project manager for IVR. I'm not done snowboarding, so I am looking forward to cold, wet weather and lots of snow in the mountains.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Dring. With the equity team. The activity that I'm looking forward to is I'm traveling to California for some sunshine in March. Yeah, and all of those good food, Mexican food. So yeah, happy to be here.
Hi, everybody. Cynthia Castro, pronouncer she, her. I'm Commissioner Mapps's Deputy Chief of Staff and liaison to PBOT. And I will just echo what everyone said about just more outdoor time. I'm also a big sports nut. So the basketball, soccer, baseball intersection, I love. So yeah, and the sunshine is a nice change of pace. So.
Thanks, Cynthia. My name is Marcus Mundy. I'm the executive director at the Coalition of Communities of Color, he, him, his pronouns. And what am I looking forward to doing in the spring? It's more pedestrian. My 3 adult children will converge on Portland in the spring. And on the first day, I'm making all 4 of us clean out my garage. Oh my gosh. And they're gonna get rid of all their stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. They don't know this yet. That's what's happening on day 1, but they're all together. So.
All right, moving to our virtual folks.
Yes, I will take us through that. Emily Thomas Peralta, once again, spring. So I'm actually located in Houston. So a little bit different situation than all of you, but the rodeo is like a really big thing out here, and it's not your average rodeo. They have concerts and it's this barbecue competition. So I'm looking forward to that kicking off next month. And let's kick off with Greg, and then we will go to Michael and Vicki.
Hi, I'm Greg Johnson, IBR Program Administrator, he, him pronouns. And this spring, I am looking forward to continuing my number of trips walking across the bridge in better weather. So looking forward to getting over 50 as the number of crossings I've made. So.
Hello, everyone. Michael Strauss with Kimco Realty. We own the Jansen Beach Center in the shadow of the bridge on the west side, representing our ownership, our tenants, and businesses across Hayden Island. As for this spring, I'm all about the wildflowers and rainbows. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go with Vicki, Peter, and then Darcy.
Vicki Nakashima. I'm a resident of Southwest Washington. I use she, her pronouns. My number one thing was the cherry blossoms here in the Northwest. But after Marcus said his 3 adult children were going to clean out his garage, Marcus, do you think you could send them over to my house?
I guess you're finished. I'm Peter Fells. I'm affiliated with ACE, which is Alliance for Community Engagement. I'm not sure I could say I represent them, but work with them and a member. Like a lot of people, spring is gardening time for me. I've got my some of my beds cleared and prepared, and I'm sprouting peas, and they will get planted this weekend. And I look forward to continue to garden for the rest of the gardening year, which goes till about November.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm with Workforce Southwest Washington, but representing the Columbia Willamette Workforce Collaborative, which are the 3 workforce boards that serve the bi-state 6-county region that we're in. And like many of you, I am looking, we just had our yard redone last fall. So I'm just looking forward to being able to go outside and make it look pretty and plant flowers and have it be more colorful, but I'm very excited.
Thanks so much. Let's go with Janie Farley and then Scott S.
Hi, everyone. I am Janie Haygood. I'm the chair of the Vancouver Parks and Rec Advisory Commission, she, her pronouns. I recently attended a seed swap, and so I am super excited to finally get those seeds planted and in the ground.
Hi, everybody. I'm Farley Winters. I'm with LSW Architects in Vancouver, Washington, where I'm an architect, sustainability director, and associate principal. And I am one of those adults who is learning to ski this year. So I'm looking forward to more spring skiing and building confidence on the slopes.
Hello all, my name is Scott Sharba. I'm the development project manager at the Vancouver Housing Authority. I am looking forward to getting on my bike and digging in my garden. I do not have much of a green thumb. It sounds like there are a lot of gardeners in this group, so always looking for tips and tricks. Send them my way. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go with Scott M and then Ben and Michelle.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Scott McCollum, he, him pronouns. I'm the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. And this spring, I'm looking forward to watching my 16-year-old niece play her club soccer for the Portland Saints organization. So that's it.
Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, good morning. Ben Jacobson here. I'm representing Jane's Forum, and I'm on the board of Confluence Project and founder of a small company here in Portland, and just representing, I guess, all of the above. So, and what I'm looking forward to this spring is a lot more trail running outside, hopefully.
Great, and let's go to Michelle. Okay, we can go ahead and come back. And then I believe Nicole just joined us. Nicole, we're doing introductions. If you would like to go ahead and do yours. So please introduce your name, your organizational affiliation, and then your pronouns. And our prompt is, what are you looking forward to doing this spring?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Davison Leon. Pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm the executive director at the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber. And I'm originally grew up in Arizona, so I'm looking forward to just the sun here in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if that was a comment thing, but that is my only looking forward to is having a little bit of sun. So.
Thank you so much. I believe that rounds out our virtual folks, so I'll turn it back over to you, Brie.
Great, thank you so much. I accidentally unmuted myself out of habit. Great, thank you so much. So we're now going to move into the public comment portion of our agenda. Our comment instructions. Thank you. Our comment instructions: to make a verbal comment, to make a live comment via phone, please dial 1-646-931-3860 or 1-408-638-0968. The meeting ID is 823-5803-3783, and the passcode is 385815. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator will call on participants to provide comment. Please dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation, and then a 10-minute time frame will be divided among the number of requested speakers. If we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. To provide public input after the meeting, fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CBAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can call 360-859-0494 for Washington, 503-897-2918 for Oregon, or 888-503-6735 toll-free and state CBAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CBAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CBAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. You do have written comments in your packet. Xander, do we have anybody wishing to submit verbal comment for today?
None at this time.
Great, thank you, Xander. Moving forward to our next slide. I'm now going to turn it over to Greg Johnson, Program Administrator, for our program update.
Once again, welcome everybody. And once again, I apologize for not being able to be in person with you. But the program has been tremendously busy over the last month since we've met. One of the key things that happened is we had a visit from the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. And he spent quite a bit of time on the bridge and in our project office. Some of you were in the room, and we appreciate your comments to the secretary. But very important visit for the secretary to walk on the bridge, to understand the circumstances of which we are trying to overcome with this program. He was very much interested in our efforts surrounding equity as well as community benefits. So it was a very robust discussion. And secondly, we had another dignitary from Washington. We had the Federal Highway Administrator visit our project and walk the bridge with us and sit with us and have conversations about how we are moving this program forward. So these visits have put a lot of energy into our program and a lot of momentum into what we're trying to get done. Other things we've been doing, we hosted a equity roundtable to have the community talk to us about what equity means in terms of this program and how it can impact positively both communities on each side of the river. We've been engaging with a number of partners and industry members around each state. We had a small business roundtable, which was very successful. We've been talking to entities such as Apex, who can help provide support for small businesses and DBEs. We did a presentation for the CREDC, which that organization has been steadfast in supporting the efforts of this program and helping us to move forward. We've been doing tours. We've given a tour to the Association of General Contractors. We have more tours on deck. Once again, those tours help to set context and give people the idea of what this program can be and what it can mean to communities on both sides of the river. Our community outreach continues to ramp up as we are looking forward to releasing the draft supplemental environmental impact statement yet this summer. So we did outreach with the Vancouver Innovation, Technology and Art School. We also held what I think is one of our most important outreach. We had a youth press conference as well as a tour of the bridge for for high school journalism students and college journalism students. So the press conference was tremendously well attended. We had over 30 participants asking questions, representing different high schools and junior colleges and colleges around the region. We also last week had given those folks a tour, put them on the bus and took them through the program area and took them out onto the bridge itself so they can understand the challenges of this complex piece of infrastructure. So another key issue that's that will be kicking off tomorrow is that there will be transportation commissions have formed a bi-state tolling subcommittee. So the Washington State Transportation Commission and Oregon State Transportation Commission have put a subcommittee together to look at the tolling issues related to the IBR program. So their first subcommittee will be tomorrow. So lots of things going on. We are working through numerous technical issues to get to the release of this draft supplemental sometime this spring. We're also working on a new or revised estimate for the program. And this is an annual thing that we go through. So one of the things that we are also previewing is a new draft supplemental environmental impact statement webpage. And the purpose of getting this webpage out there is to help drive participation in the process, but also to have folks learn about how to review the document and how to provide meaningful feedback to the program. So we think this website is just one of the pillars in how we are seeking to get robust involvement from the public on this draft supplemental document. So I believe that is my last slide. So I'll take any questions that that you guys may have.
Do we have any questions within the room here or virtually?
All right, either I must have did a great job or I've totally baffled everybody. So thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you, Greg. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Emily to lead us through our next agenda item, which is going to be discuss and confirm recommendations for the avoid further harm category. Emily?
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. So since it's been a month since we've met, I wanted to give a little refresher on how this process had worked after the last meeting. So we had sent around the slides with the avoid further harm category language and we opened it up to all of your feedback. Thank you for those of you who were able to share feedback. We then incorporated that into the slide, sent those updated slides back around with our survey. And so first, we just really like to thank all of you who participated in that and who were able to take the survey. While survey participation was higher than it typically is for these types, the response rates that we typically get for these kind of surveys, we did still want to provide an opportunity to make sure that everybody is able to give feedback and to be able to participate in confirming the recommendations. So we've made a slight adjustment and we will be going through the same process that we did last month. So we're going to walk through each of the slides, go through the updated language, open up a discussion, and then we will confirm them one by one for the two slides with the 5-to-5 vote. So to make enough time for this shift, we will not be presenting the slides on the workforce equity and economic opportunity. Those slides are still provided in the deck that we shared out with all of you. So you still have all that information, and it's also reflected in the handouts that you have for the discussion today. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is the original language that we started with and we sent around to all of you. This slide reflects the updated language and the changes that we made based on all the feedback that we got. And so I'm going to read through this and then we'll open up for discussion. So under avoid further harm, we added this caveat that all of you wanted us to include for each of the categories, that all elements below will reflect leading and best practices and accommodate any local context and standards. The first recommendation is establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality during and after program construction, ensuring that pre-construction conditions are measured to use as a baseline. Next, publicly accessible community benefits dashboard showing progress on all community benefits proposals and projects. Mitigate noise and dust impacts to homes and businesses prior to, during, and after construction. Require contractors to arrange off-street parking for their site employees. Limit closures of sidewalks, bike lanes, and bus lanes near construction sites to minimize impacts on non-motorized transit. Set up portable speed monitoring signs on adjacent neighborhood streets, and create a process to monitor volumes and speeds on local streets within program area, and when warranted per local traffic code, install speed bumps or tables to address safety during construction. And as another quick note for context, before we open this up for discussion, I did want to share out the survey results for this. So 46% of members participated, 75% voted a 4 on this slide language that you're seeing here, with 2 3s and 1 5. So that's a little bit helpful context of kind of where folks were at this point. And so now I'll turn it over to Bree, who's going to help facilitate the discussion.
Great, thank you so much, Emily. So for this process, what we are going to do is we are going to open this back up for discussion. We're going to focus on the language here and make sure that we can have everything in here reflect what the CBAG would like to see. As Emily shared, we're going to go through each slide together and discuss any additional changes or updates. We'll then use FISTA 5 to confirm via modified consensus. As a reminder, a FIST or a 0 is no way. A 1 means hold on, we need to talk more about this. A 2 means I have reservations, but I could be convinced. A 3 means I guess I'm okay with it. A 4 means sounds good, and a 5 means I love it. Since some members shared feedback via email, let's start with those who have not yet shared. So any folks in person, and then Emily will be facilitating our virtual room.
Bree, just a quick point. First of all, thank you for this. As we go through, there are phrases and words that we think need to be defined. So if we could start adding to a list over on the side, what is noise? What is vibration? What is air quality? So if we are saying this is fantastic, but we don't know what it is, it's like you don't know the filling of a great looking pie. We need to start that list of definitions.
And if I can just build off of Mayor's point, this is something we're thinking about in Portland too, is just being very clear about how we go about operationalizing the recommendations that we make here, just in the real world, what does this going to actually mean? In some cases, as I think there's a dashboard, I think I understand the dashboard. In some situations, like Mayor pointed to vibrations, noise, air quality, we have some of the same concerns.
Any other folks in the room?
I guess I have a question, I guess, for the group, which is in the third item, mitigate noise and dust impacts to homes and businesses prior to, during, and after construction. I guess I'm confused about what prior to means and how it is relevant or applicable. And so there may be discussion that's super relevant to that and why it's there. I get a little worried about sort of seeming like we are committing to managing issues going into the situation as opposed to things that we create. And so I guess I'm curious if anybody remembers how or why that prior to was added and what that means. I don't recall.
Carly, I'd be happy to answer that because it's on the second page. And that was the installation of sound and dust proof windows before construction starts. We have businesses and homes that are going to be facing 24 hours of construction for 7 years. Those windows need to be replaced before a shovel in the dirt.
I want to invoke facilitator's privilege for a second here. because I know that we have folks virtually who can't hear quite what we're saying. So I'm gonna ask that folks please put their placard up and let me call on them, so that way we can just make sure we're being attentive to our virtual folks as well. I just want to recap what was said so far, so that way our virtual listeners can hear. Mayor Ann and Commissioner Maps both stated that we do need to work to define noise, vibration, air quality, and make sure that we understand what those terms are. Carly then responded to that and also shared that there's some other words in there too, like prior to, that we do need to get more definition into. I also want to remind folks within the context of the conversation we're having today that we are trying to focus on specific language related to this slide and making sure that we are making changes that are directly impacting the language here. So if we can try to make sure that our comments focus on that specifically, then we would be able to move this forward. And if there's any questions about what this process is and just needing a reminder, that is something that Emily can help share for us. Any other folks in person? I also want to be attentive to our virtual room as well.
I don't want to get off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And you just said that. I don't want to get off on a tangent or disrupt your process here, but one thing that does come to mind is on the limit closures of sidewalks, bike lanes, bus lanes. Very closely related to that, it would be nice if there was a way for us to be able to say, can we treat buses and trucks in a similar fashion? They're both large vehicles, they're both very efficient vehicles, they both produce, cars that are on the road, so forth. I don't know if this is the right spot for it, or if it's somewhere else where we can say, to the extent possible, to the extent reasonable, try and prioritize bus and truck flow over single occupancy vehicle flow.
I just want to make sure I repeat that to make sure that I'm capturing it correctly. So would this be adjusting the fifth bullet point down on page 18 of everyone's packet to say limit closures of sidewalks, bike lanes, and bus lanes near construction sites to minimize impacts on non-motorized transit, prioritize bus and truck flow? Do you see that as being a separate sentence
I think
afterwards?
that works because I don't know, it's kind of up to the engineers to say, well, we can do this or we can't do that. And so I don't have a specific request there except to prioritize and to understand both buses and trucks bring value. And so to the extent that we disrupt the traffic, can we, as we start flowing it again, can we prioritize those two types of vehicles as well as active transportation?
Great, thank you, Courtney. Other comments from in the room or virtually?
So this is Michael Strauss. I had one comment if that's appropriate. Avoid further harms is such a broad sounding, collection of topics. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place or if it's another appropriate place. I know that here we had added at my request, and I appreciate the inclusion, the and businesses to the mitigate noise and dust impacts, the third bullet point. I'm not sure if it's best here or somewhere else, but I do still think that we should continue to emphasize that where possible, we should minimize the loss of businesses and jobs from the program area. I'm not sure, this seems very construction focused, but I did want to try to place that in the group's mind space as well. Thank you.
And if it's okay for me to go ahead and step in really quickly, thank you so much for that, Michael. I think that's definitely something that we can revisit when we're going to come back to each of these categories later on, right, and collect more ideas. And so right now, these were the ones that were particularly time sensitive that we flagged, but we definitely will take note of that and include that for our future discussions in this category. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and go to Greg and then Farley. You're on mute, Greg.
Thank you. So I will not call myself Debbie Downer. I'll call myself Ralph the Realist. on some of these issues where you're saying after program construction, the IBR cannot commit entities to things beyond the program. So when you say monitor noise, vibration, and air quality after program construction, that is a whole different kettle of fish that is being put on the table. So where it says after construction in some of these elements, I don't know if that's realistic, that this program can once again bind others to doing that. So I want to put that point out there. The issue of prioritizing trucks, buses, bikes, when the vast majority of usage across this bridge is motor vehicle traffic, I don't know how realistic that's going to be. There are going to be times when we are going to have utilize what are called bus bridges to get folks who are biking across the river or walking across the river because of the construction conditions. Once we start taking out the existing structure, there is going to be disruption. So it's a great goal, but I don't want to create this unattainable idea that we can prioritize things that we're going to clearly have impact on. So just wanted to put those things out there.
Okay, I'm going to pass it to Farley, and then we have a queue for in-person, so I will then turn it over to our in-person.
Thanks, Bree. My comment is minor, and that is the second bullet point. I'd love to see a verb in there, like the other bullet points. So if we could say provide publicly accessible community benefits dashboard.
Okay, thank you, Farley. I'm then going to move to our in-person folks. So I have Walter, followed by Holly.
Regarding bullet point number 3 and the dashboard and some of the comments, it seems to me it should say measure and mitigate noise and dust impacts. Because how can we mitigate them if we haven't measured them when we started? And that's what I thought about before.
Okay, I want to restate that just to make sure that I have that correct. For the publicly accessible community benefits dashboard, we want to measure and mitigate progress on all community benefits proposals and projects. Maybe we should restate that.
Just add measure and mitigate on bullet point number 3 on this slide.
Oh, okay, as part of measure and mitigate noise and dust impacts. I apologize.
And that explains why it's before, because you have to measure before to know if you're mitigating it at all.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add to his comment since mine is related to his?
Do you mind if I go to Holly first? And
No,
then
that's
I'll
okay.
come
Go
to you?
ahead. Go ahead. Kind of the same situation.
Go for it.
So I would go even further and say even in the first bullet,
Yes.
for me to put it to bed is establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality during program construction, ensuring mitigation and pre-construction conditions are measured as a baseline. Beginning construction, what you do with property owners is you go in and you assess first, and then you come up with things that you think you can do, to Greg's point, and things you can't do. And then you set a budget, and hopefully you can support those businesses with having a stipend, pay them monthly for rent, something like that. There's certainly things that contractors, architects, and owners always do. So I think if we put in mitigation, it helps the mayor with some of her concerns.
Is it combining 1 and 3?
Yep. Yep.
I'm going to make sure that I restate that to make sure that I understood correctly. And I'm going to ask people just to remind that I am following a cue here, and so that folks put up their placard when they're ready to speak. Okay, so for that one, that would be Apologies. Okay. Was that under, I apologize, bullet point 1 or bullet point 2 again?
1 and 3 kind of, I think being
1 and 3,
combined.
okay.
Yep. They're pretty much saying the same.
So that would be establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality during program construction, ensuring that mitigation and pre-construction conditions are measured to use as a baseline. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm now going to go to Holly, followed by Commissioner Maps.
So two things. One, I apologize, I was not here for the January meeting. I think assumed in all this is that there will no sort of homes or buildings are going to be destroyed. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's certainly not listed here as avoiding further harm. So I feel like at some point, someplace that probably should be acknowledged, whichever way it's going to be.
I'm going to actually have Emily come and speak to that very quickly, just to provide some context around that and how this fits into our larger process before then going to Commissioner Maps.
Okay.
Emily?
Oh, I had one more.
Oh,
Sorry.
I apologize. Would you like to give your next
And
point?
then just real quick, like on Greg's comment on bullet point 5, limit closures. I think we understand that in the construction process, there are times for safety and other reasons when it's not possible. But I think the problem that those of us I feel as a person who lives in sort of the core Vancouver downtown area, been living in a construction zone for 5 years. And so when the streets, the sidewalks, the crosswalks, the bike lanes are closed for months on end, it's getting really old. And so to the extent that we can think about those things and maybe a better way to do things, I realize that there are going to be times when they are going to be closed because that's the only thing that can be done. So that's where that's coming from.
I'm going to have Emily speak to your first question in there, Holly, and then I'm going to pass it to Commissioner Maps. I also do just want to provide a time check that we're at 10:21 and we do still have another slide. So I'm going to recommend that after we go through Commissioner Maps's comment, we then, I'll then share out where we're at with the language we have, and then we can go from there. Okay, Emily.
And yeah, Greg, I also want to give you an opportunity to speak on this as well, as I understand that issue around displacement may be related to the draft CIS, but just I can give a general overview about the process. So just as a reminder, Holly, these are not intended in this category, are not comprehensive of all the recommendations that we will give and discuss through this process. These are just the ones that were flagged as being particularly time sensitive, but there are certainly ones that have been discussed around displacement, and there will be additional opportunities for us to continue on that particular piece. But Greg, I don't know, wanted to give you a chance if there's anything you wanted to say on that. If not, we can go ahead.
Yeah, so we're working through, and part of the purpose of the draft supplemental is to begin to tighten down what the actual footprint and the impacts will be to certain properties and certain businesses. So we will know and have a better idea. We know that there will be some dislocations. We understand that on a project of this size and complexity. So we are always seeking to avoid, minimize, and then mitigate in that order for impacts. So we do keep that in mind, but we will have a better idea and we'll bring that to this team once we understand the final footprint and what those impacts to homes and potential relocations will look like.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Commissioner Maps.
Thank you very much. And actually, this is a question / statement to Greg. Greg, I'm going to ask you to put your Roger the realist, I think, hat back on for a second. while we're talking about avoiding harm here, one of the discussions that would be very helpful as the commissioner in charge of transportation here in Portland to have up around this project is how do we go about managing harms that are triggered by this project that fall outside of the immediate IBR project area? A space that I'm specifically thinking about is, for example, traffic congestion. Like who manages that? I suspect I can make some guesses as to what the answers are there, but in order for, I think, Portland, and Vancouver is probably in a similar position. In order for Portland to be a good partner here, at some point, we're going to have, I think, a broader conversation about mitigating harms that fall a little bit outside the map that we're going to look at later. Recognize we're trying to keep a tight focus on the slides before us today, and I'm not asking us to expand that right here, and I know this is going to come back to us, but I'd like to put that in the parking lot and ask staff to find time either in a meeting or outside of a meeting for us to dive into the whole thing.
Great.
So if I could.
Sure.
We understand that on a project of this size and impact that we are going to have some reverberations outside of our official construction footprint. And we will work in partnership with both cities to understand what those things are and try and utilize tools and at our disposal and things that we can partner with both communities to try and if we're getting spillover traffic because of we are impacting traffic on I-5 and is spilling over to local streets, we will be willing to sit down with the community and talk about what can we do. Is it put speed signs? Is it putting speed tables in neighborhoods where we are seeing some spillover traffic coming off of the interstate and utilizing local roads? So all of those things are things that we would traditionally work with, and we're going to have to make sure that those things are taken into account during any construction phase.
Greg, I love that answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to call Peter and then I'm going to go to Mary Ann.
Hi, thank you. I just want to remind people when we're talking about displacement and relocation, that as soon as construction starts, there are probably going to be a lot of homeless people that are going to be removed from the project footprint. And I understand this discussion was geared by staff to talk about immediate issues, but I think that's an immediate issue, and we need to keep in mind what's going to happen to the homeless people that are camping on right-of-ways. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to remind folks that we do still need to vote on these specific slides in front of us here today. And so while the discussion around these additional ideas is really helpful, I do want to remind us that we'll have time to discuss this later on in the work plan and to focus on the language that we have here in front of us. Mary Ann?
Bree, before I can vote on this, I think I would like someone to take the time, and we can certainly go on to the next slide and come back, to take the time on number 1 and number 3, type it out. I want to see them merge together, but I want to see it in writing before I vote on it.
I agree with that, Mary Ann, and I thought Nate had some really good statements in the way that it was structured and the things that's, anyway, I'd like to see what he said in writing.
Yeah.
Somebody repeat it, not me.
But we could certainly go on to the next page while someone wordsmiths it, gets it in writing, throws it up on the screen so we can all see it.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So for the folks who are listening virtually, what was suggested was that we move on to slide 2. And in that time, we will have somebody combine the bullet points for specifically point 1 and point 3 to reflect the feedback that's been given so far. And I believe that was a lot of the feedback given by Nate. So I will get started on that. And then Emily, if you would like to go to the next slide and then start reading through.
Sounds great. Thank you. Okay, and so again, this was the original language that we had started from, that we sent around to folks and got feedback on. And this was the updated slide that we sent around with the survey. And so I will walk us through this and then we will have discussion. So again, all elements below reflect leading and best practices and can accommodate any local context and standards. First recommendation on this list is establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents. Install electric charging stations in the construction zone for contractor use to meet EV requirements. These charging stations are to be placed so that they may become convenient public facilities after construction is complete. And there was a note there that we had combined those two together. Next, install electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid future disruption for charging stations. Work with highly impacted residents to determine mitigations during construction, such as installation of sound and dust-proof windows in a timely fashion before construction begins, hotel vouchers during the noisiest overnight operations if certain noise levels are exceeded, etc. Retrofit diesel construction vehicles to curb pollution prior to the start of construction.
Great, thank you, Emily. So we're going to move into discussion now for these ones. I'm going to start with our virtual folks this time and see if anybody has any comment before moving to our in-person. Okay, I'm going to start with Greg and then I will move to Marianne.
So regarding the electric vehicle or low emission requirements for contractors, this is an issue that I have been championing from the start. And the industry is moving that way. But once again, some of these larger pieces of equipment that will be lifting multiple tons of weight, these things are not ready for electric vehicle. But there are or low emission vehicles, but there are some things that we can do to incentivize. And so I would say incentivize as a term rather than require. But and the issue with impacted residents, such as installation of sound and dust-proof windows, that's an issue where we're going to be looking to others to help bring resources to the table. This is not something that DOTs have done traditionally, but it's something that we can help with, but we're going to need others to help bring those resources to the table to help with issues such as that, because that can be a project in itself. So just once again, putting on the Roger or Ralph realist hat, we cannot be all things to all people, but we can be a help to get some of these things done. But we're going to need others to bring resources to the table.
Great, thank you, Greg. I want to make sure that I have that correctly. Would this be under bullet point 2, incentivizing installation of electric charging stations?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Marianne, followed by Tom and then Porky.
2 quick things. Let's throw highly impacted in our list of definitions so we know who we're talking about. Is it at a map or a list or something in there? Greg, I'm going to come back to you. We've discussed this opportunity for sound and dust-proof windows for quite some time. Do you have other national projects of significance such as this? And could you tell us who paid for those, who put those in their community benefits?
So the project that I am most familiar with that had this as a tool was the Gordie Howe, but the Gordie Howe was built under a different delivery method. That was a public-private partnership. So the private entity that funded the construction and funded some of the mitigations were able to pay themselves or are able to pay themselves back through future tolling. So it was an easy get to yes on an issue like that under a public-private partnership. Here we don't have that tool. So we're gonna have to make sure we bring, once again, all of the resources to the table that can help achieve some of these things.
If your staff could send us some resources, we'll start researching for that and look at what other projects across the nation have done for these types of community benefits. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to have Tom followed by Corky.
Thank you. Tom Hickey. I would like to begin with the idea that realism should not necessarily dictate the limits of the things we ask for in these meetings. I think I can't remember who the poet was from freshman English that said, a man's reach should exceed his grasp, else what's a heaven for? Might have been John Donne. Point being that if we limit our vision to only the things that are proven as realistic, we won't push the edges and find even better solutions than the ones that have been tried before. On this list of items, I would say the last three: install electric lines, work with highly impacted residents, and retrofit diesel construction vehicles, are kind of redundant and included in earlier items. Install electric lines is directly part of the second bullet about install electric charging stations. Working with highly impacted residents on the installation of windows is directly connected to the topic in the previous slide and ought to be rolled into that one that's being rewritten right now rather than a separate bullet. And the retrofitting of diesel construction villages is part of low emission requirements or recommendations or incentives, rather to me than a separate line item. So thank you.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Tom, would your suggestion be to consolidate these or to strike them for being redundant?
I would strike the third from the bottom as redundant. I would consolidate the second from the bottom into the one on the previous page. And I think I would strike the bottom one, the last one, as being redundant as well.
Okay. I see I have Corky followed by Nate, and then I will go to our virtual room, which has some hands raised.
So the first two and the last one, I believe all deal to some degree about construction vehicles, diesel construction vehicles. And we're missing a really good tool here, which is renewable diesel. It's not biodiesel, it's renewable diesel. Anybody wants to workshop on that, I'm happy to do it. It's really cool stuff. And according to Oregon DEQ data, a vehicle running on renewable diesel gives you the same carbon reduction as an electric vehicle. So in order to make some of these a little bit easier, I would suggest adding in the option of renewable diesel. So electric vehicles, fantastic. I've got one myself, but renewable diesel is a very easy, inexpensive solution that gives you the same carbon impact. So I think we should have included that in those three, the first two and last bullet points. And I think one way to do that as an example is the project might be able to make renewable diesel more available to the contractors. You know, the supply is the only problem here in Oregon because California's got most of it. So the office might be able to increase supply.
Okay. Just to make sure I understand that clearly, in terms of the language change, as I understand it would be that final bullet point on page 20, if that's correct?
Well, three of them, the first two bullet points and the final one.
Okay,
All three of those are opportunities for renewable diesel as well as opportunities for electric vehicles. And they all
Great.
achieve the same thing, so.
with the framing, to add to the end, for example, for bullet point 1, establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents, explore opportunities for renewable energy.
Yeah, so each one needs a little bit different, but yes, something like that. Or you could say establish challenging electric vehicle, low emission or renewable diesel requirements, anything like that. The second one, well, the second one is that just about
This is about
the charging stations? Yeah. Okay, I take that back, not the second one, my apologies. And then the last one, retrofit diesel construction equipment and increase the availability of renewable diesel for contractors, or consider requiring renewable diesel if it's available for contractors.
Okay, I want to go to Nate. Thank you for your patience, Nate. And then we'll go to our virtual room, which will start with Peter after Nate.
I want to tag on to the avoid further harm, kind of, I guess, tagline, if you will, and almost caution some of the discussion around mitigation of replacing windows and just being mindful of history. We would set a new precedence that has never happened that I know of in the state of, at least on the Oregon side, around pretty much adding value to people's homes without it being a consideration for more in the community. Because I can name TriMet, ODOT, the displacement of the African-American community that didn't get any of this stuff. Not one peep of this. This is why they now live out in the numbers. And a lot of white folks have moved into the community. And so all I can think about is if we do this, this is going to touch more white homeowners that can afford to live in inner Northeast. I mean, I don't know the Vancouver market very well, but I don't know of any precedents. This is why I just heard Greg say that there was a private entity that came in. I would caution that we don't use public dollars to do something that's been never done that I can know, ever in construction, that we just be careful. I don't think it's a bad consideration, but I don't want any community folks that look like me to feel like now this is further harm because nobody in public agencies have ever done this before here. So I guess I just want to make sure we think about that, because I'd love to see our minority homeowners, small businesses, a part of that mix, or are they not? Just before we say, yes, let's do this, I guess.
Thank you, Nate. I'm going to move to our virtual room with Nate followed by, you just went. I'm going to move to our virtual room with Peter, followed by Nicole and then Darcy, and then I'll move to Commissioner Maps. I do want to do a time check here and remind folks that we do have a pretty packed agenda today. So after Commissioner Maps, if we can confirm the language we have here and try to get to the point where we can do a vote, and then we can go back to that first slide we have. So I'm going to go to Peter. Thank you for your patience and for waiting, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to comment about the installing electric lines in advance. I don't think it necessarily is duplicated. A lot of times, all the charging stations that might be needed in the future are not installed at the time of construction. For example, if we have a park and ride for a rapid transit, maybe at a later date, they're going to want to put more charging stations in there. And the idea of putting the lines in advance is to avoid having to tear up the parking lot to put in new electric lines. So that I don't think that those are necessarily a duplicate.
Thank you for that. Moving to Nicole next, and then followed by Darcy.
Great. Mine is more of a comment regarding the first bullet point there. I see that we removed the word percentage and added establishing challenging electric vehicles. I just want to note that for small businesses or for small contractors, we know that if one of our focus is to add BIPOC contractors to this folks, that will be something that a lot of businesses are still behind due to investment opportunities of just moving into a electric and clean energy. So it's more of a comment of noting that if it is, I'm not sure what establishing challenging refers to necessarily, but just as a note that if we are looking at diversifying our contractors for this one, it might be a challenge unless there's some incentives or support for smaller businesses, smaller contractors to get that support through that.
Nicole, just to make sure that we are able to adjust language as needed, would you recommend adding incentivizing as part of bullet point number 1?
I would, yeah.
So that could potentially change that language to establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract opportunities, explore opportunities for renewable energy and incentives. Would that speak to what you're bringing up?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to move to Darcy and then move to Commissioner Maps.
Well, I think Nicole pretty much just said what I was going to bring up. And I was going to start by saying, nobody throw anything at me. I'm just thinking about the other side of this. Like, I do understand the importance of lowering emissions on a project like this, but given that the category is avoid further harm, I just think we should be mindful that we could be unintentionally putting these contracts out of reach for our small contractors. So yeah, basically ditto to what Nicole just said. I think it's something that we should think about, maybe some of the unintended consequences. And that some of these could be too cost prohibitive then to our smaller contractors in the region. That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Commissioner Maps.
Thank you. I know we're short on time, so I'll try to be brief. And this is, I think, mostly a note to various staffs who are listening. I wanted to build on Corky's point about renewable diesel. Portland is moving, the city of Portland is moving into the space. I think planning and sustainability has, and city council has passed a plan and vision for this. I was going to suggest that as maybe our staff tries to flesh out Corky's idea about renewable diesel, we could reach out to planning and sustainability, maybe talk to Corky too. And I think that there's an opportunity to get some synergies there, given what I vaguely remember about what we've done recently.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm going to go through and restate the language as we have discussed it here today. If something does not sound accurate or correct, please let me know. So under our first slide, let's start with slide 20 here, and then we'll go back to our previous one. Under avoid further harm, all elements below will reflect leading and best practices and accommodate any local context or standards. For our first bullet point, we are recommending that the language is changed to establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents, explore opportunities for renewable energy and incentives. Does that sound correct?
Renewable diesel specifically.
Would you like me to add including renewable diesel, or would you like me to specify renewable diesel instead of renewable energy?
It's renewable diesel we're talking about for construction equipment, renewable energy. I mean, it's all renewable energy. So no, it's specifically renewable diesel. Just like saying we want
list renewable diesel.
Correct.
Scratch renewable energy.
We're listing EVs, list renewable diesel also as an option.
Great. So that will be establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents, explore opportunities for renewable diesel and incentives. For point 2, we want to incentivize the installation of electric charging stations in the construction zone for contractor use to meet EV requirements. These charging stations are to be placed so that they may become convenient public facilities after construction is complete. Does that sound correct? Hearing none, I'm going to keep moving on. The recommendation was to strike bullet point number 4 on here. And to install electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid future disruption for charging stations. Was that a correct interpretation?
There was an objection to that from somebody online.
Thank you. I'm seeing
So
Greg's hand.
So Bria, just a comment, charging stations are fairly mundane and easy to install. The key with charging stations is the future maintenance of them. And once again, who are we looking to own these charging stations afterwards? Like I said, it's fairly easy to build. Who will own and maintain them in the future? Because that will be the key issue.
Thank you, Greg. Would you have recommended language that you would suggest adding to this?
I think it's once again of bringing resources to the table. If the program can facilitate the installation of these, we're going to need others to bring resources to maintain and operate these things going into the future.
I might suggest that maybe at the end of bullet 2 that there's charging stations in place, so they may be convenient after construction is complete, and ongoing ownership and maintenance is determined. Just to capture that space.
Okay, I'm going to restate that just to make sure that our folks joining virtually can hear us. Carly is recommending that we incentivize the installation of electric charging stations in the construction zone for contractor use to meet EV requirements. These charging stations are to be placed so that they may become convenient public facilities after construction is complete. And then
the ongoing operations and ownership is determined.
Would that be and ongoing operations and ownership is determined?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Okay. I am going to move on to the next one here. So I just want to make sure that we are clear on how we want to handle bullet point number 4, which is related to installation of electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid further disruption for charging stations. And so I'm going to read that one out here. And is our desire still to strike that, or is our desire to keep it in? I just want to make sure that I got the feedback correct from you, Tom.
I vote to strike it, but there was a countering opinion put forward, so that doesn't give me any weight. My opinion has no further weight.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I have it correct, so that way when we read it out, I'm interpreting correctly. Moving to our next one, we want to work with highly impacted residents to determine mitigations during construction, such as installation of sound and dust-proof windows in a timely fashion before construction begins. Hotel vouchers during the noisiest overnight operations if certain noise levels are exceeded, etc. Okay. And moving into our final one, we want to retrofit diesel construction and including increasing availability of renewable options, such as renewable diesel, to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction.
Yeah, you could probably just say retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require renewable use of renewable diesel. They're not completely interchangeable, but they're kind of interchangeable.
I still think that's redundant with item 1.
I want to be mindful of our folks who are joining us virtually. So the suggestion here was to add retrofit diesel construction vehicles and require use of renewable diesel to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. So we are now going to move into our modified consensus process, and we're going to use our fist of 5. I'm going to go through each one individually, and then I'm going to be asking folks to use their fist of 5. All right, and give me just one moment to get ready on mine. Okay, for our first one here, Establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents. Explore opportunities for renewable diesel and incentives. So we're all going to use that fist to 5. I'm going to ask folks to keep their hands raised just because I might just need a quick second to go through and record that. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, for our next one, incentivize installation of electric charging stations in the construction zone for contractor use to meet EV requirements. These charging stations are to be placed so that they may become convenient public facilities after construction is complete and ongoing operations is determined.
Ownership and operation.
Ongoing ownership and operations is determined. Thank you, Carmen. Okay, I'm going to ask us to fist to 5 that one. I'm going to ask folks to keep their hands raised. I apologize, I'm a little bit slower. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, moving to our next one. Okay, so for our next option here, so we want to facilitate bringing resources to the table to maintain and operate electric lines in advance of the start of construction and to avoid further disruption for charging stations. And I'm going to ask folks to fist to 5 that one.
Could you read that one more time, please?
Of course, I apologize. Facilitate bringing resources to the table to maintain and operate the installation of electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid further disruption for charging stations. I want to just check in really quickly because I want to make sure I am handling that one correctly, and I'm seeing Carly.
I would know, I don't know that the conversation in the room actually shifted despite the keep it, don't keep it conversation. I don't know that we actually changed from install electric lines. So that first set of phrases that you've put in front of electric lines in advance, I feel like that's just sort of new and came out of somewhere that I don't think was part of the conversation. I think the point here is that utility management between wherever it comes from to the charging stations can be problematic. So you're trying to manage that over time. And so I think it still is probably just install. Am I misunderstanding that in the room about what makes sense?
You are correct, Carly. Thank you for checking in on that. And I appreciate it. Actually, the decision that we had at hand was whether or not to strike that or to keep that language. So I appreciate you raising that. So I would like to actually reframe my question and restate it and ask, do we feel comfortable striking bullet point number 4? And then I will also ask as a follow-up if we would like to keep it. So this would be for striking bullet point number 4, install electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid further disruption for charging stations. And I'm going to ask
for that.
I'll withdraw my concern, so.
Okay, so the recommendation to strike is withdrawn. So I'm going to read out again. We're going to fist to 5 on install electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid further disruption for charging stations. Please fist to 5. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. We're going to move to our next one here. Work with highly impacted residents to determine mitigations during construction, such as installation of sound and dust-proof windows in a timely fashion before construction begins. Hotel vouchers during the noisiest overnight operations if certain noise levels are exceeded, etc. We're going to fist to 5 this one. Is that a 3 for you, Nate? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. And I'm going to move to our last one. Retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. We are going to fist to 5 this one next. Can I see everybody's fist to 5?
I asked a clarifying question. That's saying they have to do a retrofit or they have to do diesel and there's no choice of using regular diesel. So this is a mandate or is it an incentive?
I think it was an or.
I will read it out again. This was retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction.
So no real diesel will be used on anywhere in the IVR.
Well, if they had a retrofitted.
Well, I'm just saying, like, is that like, are we encouraging that or are we like requiring that you must use the diesel or you must retrofit and nobody that has an old diesel truck is allowed on the project at all? That's what that's saying. Is that what we're saying?
So thank you, Walter. I want to make sure I restate that for our folks who are going virtually. Again, we are in the middle of voting on this, so I just want to press pause for a second and say that the question from Walter was whether or not this will require retrofitting, and then Carly's hand was raised after that.
I was just wondering about whether or not reasonable and feasible might be useful terms to incorporate here. And that might ameliorate this issue to just say to the extent reasonable and feasible. I know, and we still do have the aspirational goal about pushing the envelope, but also reasonable and feasible seems here to be, I think we're gonna have to code that over time to understand its impact on small businesses and other things. So that may leave a little space.
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking about it in terms of the contract will set goal, you know, what are the amounts that need to happen of that? Is it all of it? Is it some of it? Like what portion of that is? And then this would be consistent with how, you know, whatever that portion is, they were gonna have to perform to meet it, so.
So I just want to restate this for the folks who are virtual. And again, I want to remind that we do have to move on, and we also want to make sure that we're just being mindful again that we have people who are virtual. So please make sure that you put your placard up, and then that way I can call on you. Just to restate what was said by Ryan and by Carly, this was adding a suggestion to the end of the statement saying where feasible and reasonable. So this would change that final bullet point to retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction where feasible and reasonable.
So I would just ask possibly that the reasonable and feasible come after retrofit construction vehicles or explore renewable diesel to the extent reasonable and feasible I don't want the reasonable and feasible to be read as prior to the start of construction, because I don't think that's the point of the reasonable and feasible inclusion here. I think it's about the vehicles and what fuel they're using. So I think we want to just push that a little bit further forward in the statement.
Okay, I do see that, Tom, I do see you have your placard. I just want to make sure that I have that correct in what Carly's saying. So I do just want to make sure that I restate that. Retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel where reasonable and feasible to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. Is that correct?
That's what I would suggest.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to go to Tom and then I'm going to restate this out so then we can testify.
I would again like to suggest that that item is struck completely because that is a specific recommendation that is directly tied into the broader recommendations of item 1. And you're simply taking item one and creating a detail that's a little harder to achieve. Whereas item one gives you some options about how to achieve low emissions. And then now item 5 or whatever that one is drilling down on one particular solution and making that mandatory. And I don't feel that that's necessarily valuable to be that specific when you've already established sort of a policy about low emissions in the first item. So I recommend that this be a non-issue and we strike that item altogether.
Okay, so I'm going to put forward 2 options here. The first is to strike this language, and then the second is to use the following language, which is retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel where reasonable and feasible to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. I'm going to ask folks to fist to 5 on striking that bullet point, and I'm going to ask folks to do that now. I'm going to ask folks to keep those hands up just because I'm writing at the same time here. And I'm going to ask that everybody puts their hand up, even if it is a fist, to make sure that we can track.
Help me understand if you're asking us to keep the last one or to remove it.
The question would be to strike this one, which is what we are fist-to-fiving on right now. And then the second one would be keeping it in and using the language that I read out.
Okay, and if I do not want to strike it, how do I demonstrate that?
You would vote with our fist to 5, and that would be likely a fist.
As 0.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask folks to put those hands back up. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, folks, for your patience. Okay, thank you so much. All right. For our next one, we are then going to read out retrofit diesel construction vehicles and use of renewable diesel where reasonable and feasible to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. And I'm going to ask folks to fist to 5 it.
I'm sorry, you said or and?
I have or require use of renewable diesel.
I thought I heard it, so or is great.
Of course. So that is retrofit diesel construction vehicles or require use of renewable diesel where reasonable and feasible to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction. I'm going to ask folks to fist to 5 that one, please. Right. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. So we do have one slide that's remaining, and that's our previous slide. So this was, I'm going to ask Emily to go back to that slide.
And Bree, if we want to, I did update the language and writing that the mayor had asked for. And so I can show that for the first item, and we can come back to the slide deck where you have the additional notes that you took on the rest of the items. Does that sound okay?
Great, thank you so much, Emily. I'm going to pass it on to you then to read that out.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, share a different slide here so we can see the changes. Okay, so I believe I captured the update on this first item, which was establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality during program.
I can't read that. I'm sorry.
Emily, can I please ask you to make that slide bigger?
Oh, yes, sure. Just one moment, please.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to check with folks and make sure that that text is big enough or if it needs to be bigger.
Okay, bigger. Yeah.
Emily, would you mind making it just a little bit bigger?
Maybe
Yes.
remove the yellow highlight. Does it help? There we go. Thank you.
Great.
Better?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So the wording is establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality during program construction to mitigate impacts to homes and businesses, ensuring that pre-construction conditions and mitigations are measured to use as a baseline.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're going to open it up for discussion on this one here. And I'm going to ask folks, just because we are very much at time, though understand, of course, that this is a really important topic, that we really make sure that our comments relate to the language directly that's at hand. So I'm going to open it up. Carly?
So this was a combo of two things, correct?
Yes.
And the thing that this was combining also had dust as an item, and that does not appear in this piece. And so I think we potentially lose something and people will get either itchy now or itchy later that dust isn't in the list.
Thank you, Carly. I then see Mayor Ann.
Ensuring that pre-construction conditions are measured to use as a baseline, yes. Ensuring that pre-construction conditions and mitigations are measured. Are we measuring mitigations during construction?
This came from, sorry, this came from Nate's comment, so I don't know if Nate, if you'd like to clarify that here.
Yep, that'd be like, to your point about noise or dust, that we put up some monitors that look
So
at
we,
that
right.
during construction. If they're growing too fast, we gotta of course correct it.
So we measure and mitigate, we monitor and measure pre-construction. But we also monitor and measure how the mitigations are working during construction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So somewhere in that last couple of bit, we need to understand that it's the pre and post test.
Yep.
Measure it before the construction starts, mitigate it, and then check on that mitigation to see if it's working. I'm not
It needs to probably say pre and during construction.
Pre and during construction, maybe that helps.
Pre and during construction conditions.
Okay, so I want to make sure, again, just for our folks who are virtual, the suggestion was to add pre and during construction activities, and then I have Ryan.
I was gonna go a different route, I guess, on that, and I wasn't gonna put that, I was just gonna get rid of the word and mitigations, so it's saying, because the air quality during construction mitigate impacts to homes and businesses and measured against the regular business. I don't know, maybe what you did
taking
get,
out that
yeah,
second
maybe what you did
mitigation.
gets to it. I just think, because the mitigations part is during construction, so it just didn't feel like it needed to be in that second part at the end of the sentence, right?
Program construction, I see what you're saying.
So we're establishing systems for continuous monitoring for noise, dust, and vibration air quality during program construction to mitigate the impacts to homes and businesses. And that they're measured using pre-construction as a baseline, pre-construction conditions as a baseline. Anyway, I was just trying to figure out how you get rid of that. It's feels like we're making it more complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it that we need 2 sentences, not a 4-line compound sentence?
So I just want to make sure, because I'm seeing some placards go. So the question right now is if this should be separate sentences or compound sentences. Mayor, do you have a recommendation?
Why don't we again take it and finish up all the rest of the items that you want to do FISTA 5 on, and someone can work on that. I think it needs to be broken into two different, talk about pre and post. Measure it, mitigate it, monitor it, and use baseline somewhere in that pre. But let's move on to some of the other items that you have while we ask Emily to work on that or something.
So I want to, I see Eric, you also have your placard up. The suggestion was to move through some of these other ones before we get back to this one, so we can move forward with doing after we hear from Eric.
Just a suggestion to include either in addition to or in lieu of homes and businesses, other properties in the corridor, because there are other very intensely used properties that are not homes or businesses, like Delta Park or the historic reserve.
So the suggestion is to adjust the language to instead say mitigate impacts to homes, other properties, and businesses.
Or just mitigate impacts.
Yeah.
Which would then change this to establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, dust, vibration, and air quality during program construction to mitigate impacts to homes, businesses, and other properties, ensuring that pre and during construction conditions or mitigations are measured to use as a baseline. The recommendation was to go through some of these other options first and see if we can get voting on those before we then go back to that specific recommendation again. So the first one that we are going to FISTA 5 on within this page is to provide a publicly accessible community benefits dashboard showing mitigation progress on all community benefits, proposals, and projects. I apologize, I misstated that one incorrectly. I apologize, I accidentally read the wrong one. That one should be provide publicly accessible community benefits dashboard showing progress on all community benefits, proposals, and projects. So I will restate that one more time just because I want to make that one clear. Provide publicly accessible community benefits dashboard showing progress on all community benefits, proposals, and projects. Okay.
We have 8-4 in the room and then 2-5.
Great, thank you.
And in the virtual.
Okay, so I'm then going to move to the next one here. Measure and mitigate noise and dust impacts to homes and businesses prior to, during, and after construction.
I think we.
This is the
I
consolidation.
apologize, this one is the one that's getting consolidated. Please disregard. Our next one here is require contractors to arrange off-street parking for their site employees. So we are going to FISTA 5 this one.
Is there a way to add, I think, what was mentioned earlier about feasible and reasonable? And I think at times there's just, it's going to have to be what it is. If that's hurting construction activities somehow. So I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to vote for something that might come up later when this project is really happening. And we made a decision that obviously can't hold as a decision because of something construction related. So I guess I'm just saying to agree with everybody if there could be a feasible.
Okay. The recommendation, and I want to again just be aware of time that we're at 11:18 and do still need to move through some of these other ones here. That the recommendation for folks is to require contractors to arrange off-street parking for their site employees where feasible and reasonable. So I'm going to ask folks to FISTA 5 on that one.
7, 5, and 4, 4 in the room. Have another 2, 5 in virtual, and then 6, 4, and then 2, 3.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, our next one here. Is to limit closures of sidewalks, bike lanes, and bus lanes near construction sites to minimize impacts on non-motorized transit. Prioritize bus and truck flow. Okay, I'm gonna ask folks to vote on that one.
The 4, 4, and then 2, 3, and then 1, 2 in the virtual.
Okay, great, thank you. And then for our final one here, before we move back into our consolidated, create a process to monitor volumes and speeds on local streets within the program area, and when warranted per local traffic code, install speed bumps or tables to address safety during construction. So I'm going to ask folks to testify.
I'm sorry, did I miss the street neighborhood streets? Portable speed monitoring.
I'll come back to that.
So we're on number 6, not 5.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay.
So can I have folks, again, create a process to monitor volume and speeds on local streets within the program area, and when warranted per local traffic code, install speed bumps or tables to address safety during construction.
Yeah, that Mingus is gonna leave that on the Portland side.
Or whoever sits there.
Just can't possibly Christian side.
Sorry, I'm a little slow.
They're good, Eric.
Okay. So I have we have 5, vote for 5, and then 8 for 4, and then 3, 3 people vote for 3, and then 1 people vote for 2.
Thank you. I'm going to go back up one, and my apologies for skipping. Thank you, Mayor Ann, for catching this. Set up portable speed monitoring signs on adjacent neighborhood streets. So again, this is set up portable speed monitoring signs on adjacent neighborhood streets.
Can I just ask one more question? I just want to make sure I understand the question. Like this isn't just the project, right? This is community partners and who's doing this, because I'm thinking about the who here. So this is, we're talking about city streets, we're talking about that. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Go ahead, Eric, what's your thought on that?
I want to really fast before we address that question. I want to have Emily weigh in on that and just recapture where we're at in the process. Emily?
I'm sorry, could you please restate the question? Oh, I'm sorry, who is responsible for this? So yes, the community benefits, all of these, it's understood that not all of these will be the responsibility of the DOTs or any particular agency. As part of this process, we're going to be exploring different partnerships and resources from our partner agencies. So yes, these are not all going to be committed to one party to be responsible for.
Okay,
thanks.
Of course.
That's my question.
All right, I see Eric and Tom have their placards up. I am going to ask that we can testify this one just because we have only about 8 minutes left of our meeting, unless the comment is specifically related to this point here.
It is very brief. I think that second to the last item is identical to the final item because that calls to create a process to monitor speeds on local streets in the final item. I think that the second to the last item calls for exactly the same thing. And suggest we strike it.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So I'm going to, thank you. I'm going to ask that folks Do 5 to 5 then for set up portable speed monitoring signs on adjacent neighborhood streets.
Sorry for online, I am counting yours. Be informed. Great, is that a 1? Okay. So we have 1 4 for 1, 1 for 2, 8 for 3, another 8 for 4, and 1 person for 5.
Great, thank you so much. There was also a recommendation to strike that language. Okay, I am seeing from Tom that he is comfortable withdrawing that recommendation. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I know we still have one that we are trying to consolidate. I also have a placard up from Commissioner Maps and then from Eric. And so I'm going to go to Commissioner Maps first.
Have we dealt with, or we're not done? My intervention here would be, we're so far behind, I really don't want to rush through the equity stuff. And frankly, I know I have to physically be someplace else in a couple of minutes, and I think Mary Ann does too. So my recommendation, and everyone else can make their own decisions, is that we just wrap this up and adjust our schedule moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Request for a future meeting. There's a number of things in this and other lists that we have gone through that are not directly DOT responsibilities, but we don't have clarity on who. And I think we need to, or else they will float off in the ether and be meaningless. So some intentional discussion around that. And just an observation, there is a wide range of altitude represented in all these bullets. Some things are very much fine grained on the ground implementation. Some of them are 30,000 foot. It would be great if the information was organized in a way that reflected that, so that we have what we're trying to accomplish, roles, responsibilities, methods, outcomes.
Thank you for that, Eric. So we have one more vote left on the consolidated language. So I'm going to ask that Emily pull that back up. And I also want to say I really appreciate everybody's patience and flexibility today. I know this was a lot of information and material to get through, and I just want to recognize that. So thank you very much. All right. I'm going to read this one out and then ask us to 5 to 5 on it. Establish systems for continuous monitoring for noise, dust, vibration, and air quality during program construction to mitigate impacts to homes, businesses, and other properties. Pre-construction conditions will be measured to use as a baseline for monitoring.
Got it.
I'm going to ask that folks keep their hands up just so Eric can record.
We have 10 for 5 and 10 for 4.
Great. So I want to thank you everybody for being in this space here with us today. I realize this was a lot of material to get through. So again, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Greg to see if he has any final remarks to close us out before we go and enjoy this beautiful day. Greg?
Cynthia is my proxy right now. Thank you so much.
So once again, thanks everyone. This is important work to set the framework for how the program and the expectations of the community will be met. So good work. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate all of you.
You.